Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us. We are the Voice of Reason podcast. It is a lovely Tuesday evening. We're starting a little bit later. We appreciate your guys' patience. As always, my name is Sean Phillips, and I am joined alongside my lovely co host, Mr. Andy Van Beber. Andy, how are you tonight?
Well, I'm alive and don't have anaphylactic shock to bee sting or to wasp stings or hornet stings, whatever you want to call it. But hey, there you go.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a so folks, we do apologize for those we did not do the podcast last night just because Andy had dunked himself in a gallon of ice cream and attracted some bees to come on over and invite
Yes, that's
themselves
exactly
to
what I
his
did.
arm.
Yes. So no, I was actually helping my sister-in-law out last night charging her car. We have hornets around our house, and I thought I thought I had them taken care of, but I didn't get them taken care of, and so one stung me last night, and my arm swole up, and I called Sean. I said I have Popeye the Sailor arm going on, and for those of you younger listeners who don't know Popeye the Sailor, I apologize. Just go look him up. But yeah, my arm was huge, and then this morning, well, we called our telehealth nurse last night, and she said, that, "Well, you're not going through any kind of anaphylaxis. You're as long as you can breathe, and your tongue's not swelling, and all this other stuff." And I said, "Yeah, I'm good." So this morning, swelling went down my arm, almost to my wrist. I freaked out. Went to prompt care over in Bowling Green. Shout out to those folks over there. Do a great job
Oh
at
yeah.
Hannibal Regional, um, and they got me right in at 7 o'clock this morning and said you are not infected. So they gave me a shot of steroids, and I'm one of those people where when you get the shot of steroids, usually just shuts me. I know some people it like amps them up, but when I get a prednisone shot, man, it takes the wind right out of my sails. So
Man.
I
Well,
was I was hurting this I was hurting today and got home, took a little bit of a nap, and then my son got excited when our new our disc golf set came in, and so we went out, and right before sunset we went out to the YMCA and did a round of disc golf with our new set. So that was a lot of fun.
nice.
Yeah, we're
Nice. How is he at disc golf? Pretty good.
well. He actually, for a little feller, we've been watching videos together and everything like that on how to it's like when you go out to the beach and or wherever and you just throwing a frisbee, you're just going like this.
Yeah.
Disc golf, I've found out, is just a totally different where you have to turn, contort your
Oh
body,
yeah.
and just I mean these guys do, and Bryson does fairly well. I only beat him. Actually, I only beat him by 7 strokes, which for the little guy you know,
Yeah.
is you know pretty
I
pretty good.
there's like a video and it's like one of the all-time greatest moments in sports and it's relatively new. It's a disc golf like world
I
championship or
saw
something like that.
in the
And the guy he needed a hole in one
yeah.
to win and he hit it and it's one of like the craziest videos you've ever but yeah, he
Is that the
just
one that is like kind of like it has this crazy hook into it and it just
it
comes?
literally goes like around a whole bunch of
Yep.
trees and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
saw
yeah.
that.
It's
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's good
man.
stuff. That's
It's
good
yeah,
stuff.
like those kind of moments like in sports, like because when you're kind of watching it, you're just like, well, it didn't seem like it was that far, but to like just understand what has to go in to make the perfect shot, and you need one to win is
It was.
absolutely insane.
I watched. Yeah, to I I want to do as much, and not I don't talk smack about my dad or anything like that, but my dad, he did fishing and he took me deer hunting, but when it wasn't any in season, we just didn't because my dad was a church planter, a pastor. You know about this being a pastor's kid,
Heard that. Heard
and
that.
and so dad and I just never. And so whenever I have a chance to find something that my son likes to do, and we can do it, man,
Hmm.
and he really digs the disc golf scene. And again, shout out to another guy, Sean Geralds, who is the program director over at the YMCA here in town. He actually is the one who designed the course for the YMCA,
Oh,
and
nice.
it comes with the membership. I like anything that's a little free action. So
Hmm.
I like that. So that's But how about you? How was your
Nice.
weekend?
Good. And busy. What did I do? What was this weekend? What did I? Oh, we went to a pumpkin patch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend for me. Went to a pumpkin patch on Saturday with my family. Um, my daughter got to hang out with her nieces and grandma and grandpa and
Hmm.
had a blast and did some good shopping. I always love like because this pumpkin patch had a bunch of like little flea market vendors and stuff, and there was all kinds of interesting goodies. I okay, so this I actually do want to address something.
Oh.
So I thankfully I'm not a very I if people insult me or people around me, depending on how far they go, will depend on how outspoken I'm going to be about the situation.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, we're looking at these booths, and there's these two older than dog shit fellas that were sitting around this table, and they were selling a bunch of goods that they had, ordered from eBay, and it was like Apple Watch wristbands for $3,
Like the
and like
Oriental
all
Trader
like
kind of thing.
yes, a bunch of very cheap foreign goods that they that's what they were selling, and these guys were old. Um, and Tony was to my right. She was at a different booth, and she was wearing a pullover sweatshirt and had her sleeves rolled up. And for those that don't know, my girlfriend has two tattoo sleeves, or her arms are covered in tattoos.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting there. I don't think that these two gentlemen realize that I'm with Tony, that Tony's my girlfriend. And they have to make it a point to one another to talk. They literally, the words that came out of this guy's mouth was like, wow, she was so beautiful, but she just ruined it with those stupid
So it
tattoos. The
was
tattoos ruin it.
they didn't do a good stage whisper is what you're saying.
No, and then one of them said it's the parents' fault when people get tattoos like that. It's the parents' fault. And I looked at the guy, and I was wearing a
I would have
hoodie,
ripped your shirt off
and
if it was if
I
he
I did. I literally I didn't take
yes.
my shirt off, but I was
Yes.
wearing a hoodie, and I just took my sweatshirt off, and I looked, and I stood there with my full sleeve and
You
everything. I was
did
like, you,
and everything
oh
on your
yeah.
chest and everything. Oh my gosh.
No, not my chest. No, I
Oh
was
dude,
wearing
you
a
should.
hoodie, but I had a short sleeve on. But I should have just flashed him like, yeah, this is my parents' fault, you dumb bastard.
For
But
those
yeah,
of you who
it
don't know,
was
Sean's one part of Sean. You're wrestling. You're Sean Patrick, the Illustrated Man, correct?
correct. Yeah.
And I tell you what, that is. I hope that I'm looking forward to when that really takes off for you because, I mean that I love. First of all,
Oh yeah.
I'm a huge fan of tattoos. I think that if the human body can be a canvas for art, by God,
Hmm.
use it. You know,
Yeah.
and I admire really good ink. And you've got when you showed me your which one was your first one? I forgot.
My very first one's actually covered up now. It was a very small Deathly Hallows here, but like my first big ones kind of started like my sister's diamond up here
Yeah,
was kind of
yeah.
like the first big one that I'd got, and then they started to meticulate down.
I remember I hadn't seen you in a while, and you came back and you started. You were telling me about all your, and I was just like, dude, I'm digging the tattoos. And
Yeah.
I think some people, the older generation, just they don't. I mean, they look at it as, oh, that's something that old, Dirty Sally has done, or that's. And
Hmm.
and what's really sad about that is they don't understand. I mean, let people have their personal choice. I would be the wuss who had like a little tiny tattoo that would be, but I mean, I
Yeah.
always make it a point because it bridges a lot of gaps too. Whenever I'm like at a gas station, and I see the attendant who has, you know, or I go to the doctor's office where I go to get
Hmm.
where I have my thumb stuff done. There's the receptionist up there. She just has beautiful art on her arm, and I just like
Hmm.
I commented, and she's like, "You're one of the." That's weird because people never comment me. I'm like, well, I'm a fan of, you know. So
Right.
that's a shame that people get that
Yeah,
mentality.
it was just kind of it was kind of not funny in a way, but it was just like, man, I thought I just the line of like it's the parents' fault. It's the parents' fault. The kid. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, like it was always a running joke, like because coming back where we're from, I had a couple friends whose parents kind of were like, what do your parents think of all that? And I was like, well, I'm not doing crack, like I'm not smoking meth. I'm pretty sure my parents are fine with if I have
I
some
don't
ink.
I don't see
Like,
old Murdog coming down and just saying, Sean.
no, no, yeah, oh Murdog. But it's funny because honestly, my Murdog forgets half the time that I have had tattoos. Like I'll show up and I've had these things for years. I'll be like, when did you get that one done? Like, Dad, you've seen this tattoo 800 times. Like, oh, forgot about it. There's so many of them now. Just I'm like,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to answer back to Colby Coleman, I don't think my wife would let me get one, Colby. So just to put that one to bed. So
No,
anyway,
yeah, my the only people that would have probably complained about, me getting too many tattoos might have been some of my grandparents, but they all kicked the bucket, so I didn't have
right,
to really worry about
right.
that. But no, so and that well, that kind of that does kind of bridge into our topic for this evening, and we're going to get into division essentially, and as you guys know, when Andy, Travis, and I had started this podcast, The Voice of Reason. The reason why we kind of got behind it was because of the division that we saw here in the United States. Politically, we're at this point where there seems to be such a divisional rift between the left, the right, and now everything now has become political. And I'm not just talking about things like COVID, but I mean, and things like sports. But now, I mean, any major issue, there is one side that, might not have an issue with it, but then the other side has to create a new problem within the problem. And we see it constantly with like even
Everything.
the for example, last week we talked about the Gabby Petito case. If we have time, I'll do a little bit at the end, an update if we have time. But that became political. It became politicized
Because
based on her
what they
race.
say, missing white girls or something.
Yes, correct. And tried to make compare. And again, we can get into that at another time.
Yeah, that's another
But it's just
issue.
it's wild how everything has to be political now, and it's not like to say in history and things have always been political, but now more so than ever, I think not only are things political like they might have been, but now it's to the point where people are at each other's throats for everything. So Andy, what talking points did you kind of
Well,
have that you wanted to
I
roll
want
with?
to start for where I came with this and what lit the fire underneath my butt for this. Um, and I try to stay connected on, as Sean does too, to not just conservative outlets or I try to keep plugged into everything. And one guy who is kind of my liberal barometer is a guy who is on what's it called? I think it's called Real Time with Bill Maher. Bill
Real
Maher.
time or real talk?
Real
Yeah.
talk,
Real
real
time,
time.
I
Yeah,
think.
real talk.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher in my eyes, is an old school liberal. He is he's your late '90s, early 2000. We used to think that he was the far left, but now he actually is the guy who is kind of the voice of reason for the left. And I subscribe to his page and I get little video snippets from his page, and I sent one to Sean this week. And the one area that I wanted to talk about first of all is he addressed this one issue earlier, and then the one I sent to Sean, which is something we'll talk about later on. But one of the things that the Met Gala, Sean, are you familiar with the Met Gala?
So my understanding of what the Met Gala is that essentially it's a fancy rich people fashion party where essentially the whole point of it, I don't necessarily know if there's a specific fashion show that goes into the Met Gala,
No.
but I know that the whole point of it
Right.
is to bring your best, your best dressed, your if you're invited, if you're in that,
Right.
social
And
circle.
so it's for the
Yeah.
Met, yeah, and it's for the Metropolitan Museum in New York. It is called
Mhm.
the Met. And the Met has this fundraiser. It is the social event of the fall, or late summer, early fall. And so the Met had their gala 3 weeks, September the 15th. Yeah,
Mhm.
September the 15th. And so I'm going to put up for the viewers on the screen here. So for those of you who listen to us on the podcast, what I'm putting up here, this is I always mess up her name, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, who is she is this is her second term from New York, and so she shows up to the Met Gala with this dress on, and on the back it says "Tax the Rich." Now, needless to say, she did not make a lot of friends with this dress, but she has gotten a large number of critics for wearing this dress. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Met Gala, we're talking 35 to get one ticket to this event is 35 grand. Okay? To to have a table is 275, so you can purchase a table for $275,000. Now, what I find so, when again talking about division and the political, I don't know if somebody's getting, if this, I hope that this isn't like a somebody's dark devious scheme to divide America so much that you know we're so against each other on every facet of everything. But so AOC, she wears this dress to a, by the way, your House of Representatives members make $174,000 a year. Okay. So she wears this dress. This is a $2,000 dress that is designed by Aurora James. Now, if you don't know who Aurora James is, she is a kind of a up and coming designer in New York City, and she runs a shoe and accessory company that's called Brother Vales Vilas. And if you go to their website, this is some entertainment, by the way. If you go to her website, she has. So I did some investigating. There is a she has a I don't know the stiletto heel for a pair of stiletto heels for $375. She has I found a pair of these wool socks on there for $150. And to me, this screams. One thing it screams is just absolute hypocrisy. And she's like, "Well, we're sending a message." And her comments from the red carpet just floored me. That we're just too hardworking. We represent two hardworking young ladies from the inner city who just I'm like, you're at a gala of the rich. The only statement you're sending is you're an ass. And to divide people on I think when we start getting in the area of wealth, and Sean, you can jump in anytime. The thing and we've talked about. I mean, we've touched a lot on wealth issues on this show. We have talked about minimum wage. We have talked about the living wage. We have talked about inflation. We've talked about all of these things. But people look at people look at the wealthy as villains. Now, do I think the tax system needs to change and close up some of the loopholes? Absolutely. Because when you have somebody like a Donald Trump who makes billions of dollars a year, and what was it? His last tax disclosure was like he paid. I forgot how much it was, like under $1,000 of taxes or something like that.
Something insane.
And
Yeah.
so, yes, that's something that needs to be fixed. But when we start vilifying one side against the other, and this just may be me going going overboard here, but we we need the wealthy to fund the economy through providing jobs. You know, if you don't have a Jeff Bezos, you don't have an Amazon. If you don't have an Elon Musk, you don't have Tesla. If you don't have um, Bill Gates, you don't have Microsoft. You don't have these guys who drive our economy. And you say, well, they're evil people. Okay, I saw a headline that said, and it was some ignorant math. I don't know who taught these people math, but it's like, Jeff Bezos now is worth is approaching $500 billion, $500 billion, and with that he could give everybody in the world a million. It was just, I was like, no, I don't think that math works out. It was something like he could give everybody in the world a million, every person in the world $1 million. Is like, okay, well, there's 8 billion people in the world, and I'm like, people always think that I've got. I mean, is it a matter of jealousy that divides us? Do you think that if I say, well, that Jeff Bezos is evil, that Donald Trump is evil because he's wealthy, is it because I don't have that? Or is it because, I mean, is it just they're naturally evil, or is it just greed or envy on my part that I don't have that stuff?
Um, I think about this a lot. Um, there's the old argument of people that say billionaires shouldn't exist. I will never be a billionaire. I'll say it. I will never be a billionaire. What I can say is people that are billionaires, there's a reason why there are so few of them. There's really not that many. There's a reason why they are worth what they're worth. The big thing, one of the biggest misconceptions that there is about billionaires is that they have liquid cash of $1 billion or more.
Right.
That is not the fact. When you look at individuals like Elon, when you look at individuals like Bezos, a lot of that comes from shares that they hold within the companies that they started. It has nothing to do with them just having cash to have cash, right? That's why when you look at like the salary of a CEO might be like $3 million, whatever it might be, like that's liquid income that they have. But the majority of these individuals' net worth comes with stocks and shares and investments and property. And there's so much that goes into what those people are. Now, are some people inherited billionaires? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, they exist. And is it very frustrating? I guess. You should have told your grandparents to make more money. I don't know what to tell you. Um, and again, there's levels to that as well. Like I'm a white American, whereas other individuals whose ancestry didn't have the same fortune that white people's. And that's okay. That's one elephant that I hate when people bring up. Like people seem to forget how pretty recent slavery was. Like if you
Right.
look at how generational wealth works, um, it's very hard. Like look at like in a lot of cases, right? If your parents are poor, typically you might be poor. If you go back, the generation before of if your grandparents
Great
were
Depression.
wealthy or a
Right.
great, there's so many things. So imagine like how long it takes for people to dig for families and lineage to dig themselves out of that hole. Now you take that and you kind of go back far, and then you literally have people that were slaves and had Jim Crow laws. Like, let's not forget, um, it wasn't that long ago that Black Americans couldn't drink from the same water fountains as white Americans in some states. So let's not act like it was peaches and cream for people to just get a job so quick.
Right.
Um, but when it comes to billionaires, they're I hate the term evil, but it's like the old saying, like there's a necessary evil. We have to have billionaires in order to have the economy that we have. Like you said, we need them in order to have jobs. Now, why? Why do these people need this money? I couldn't tell you. What I do hate is the amount of individuals though that act like they would just give that shit away like it was
Right.
their job to do. Like shut up. Shut up. It's not true. And they might say that. They might say, "Oh, if I was a billionaire, I'd do this, do this, do this, or if I had $1 million, I would give this, this, this." But then it's like, okay, if you had that, let's say you had a liquid $1 million sitting in your bank account, and you were told that you could either give all this away and be set for a year, or you can spend X amount on yourself and be good till you die. What are you gonna do?
You know what? And here's the thing. I go back to, and I don't know if my buddy Colby Coleman's still on or not, but he was there when this happened. 1999. I was in a car accident,
Mhm.
and the settlement. My lawyer told me the lady, and it was just a little old lady who had pulled out, and she is recently widowed. And my lawyer's like, you can own this woman. She had 3 or 4 thousand acres, and it's like, oh, you could own this land and everything. And I said, you know what? Just have her pay my hospital bills and, whatever, we think is right and fair. So I got a settlement. She paid for my hospital bills and I got a $50,000 settlement. Now, I burnt through that so fast that it wasn't even funny. For the and Sean, that was the only time in my life, 1999, so that was December of 1999. That was the first and only time in my life as an adult on my own that I was totally debt free.
Mhm.
I used that money to pay off my college loan. I used that money to I went through 3 or 4 vehicles. I went through 2 trucks. I went through a Pontiac, almost brand new Pontiac Bonneville. Um, I used to be really big in, before I got into Apple, I was really big in, yeah, Colby says the big truck. Yes, the big truck. And then I I mean, I went through gaming PCs, and I was really into video production, and I mean, it did pay for my master's degree, but by 2004, okay, so that happened in 1999. By
So 5 years
2004,
later.
yeah, that money was gone
Mhm.
relatively fast. Now, knowing now what I know, what I didn't know then, 20, what the 26-year-old kid did 21 years ago, and what this 47-year-old dude now who's in front of you sees is, man, I could have done a lot more with that. I could have done a lot more with that. You know, I gave what I gave to the church, and then I went nuts. So when people tell me what you just said, when people say I'm going to do this with money, until you're in that spot, and now, granted, $50,000 isn't $1 billion, but to a poor kid who grew up in Central Illinois, whose dad made $900 a month, and had 4 boys at
Mhm.
home, okay, and made that $900 a month pay for, okay, $50,000 is a lot of cash. And so I call BS when somebody says, "Well, I'm going to do this and I'd give it to that." No, you're not. I find it. I applaud people like Bill Gates, who the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, gives to he's the Andrew Carnegie of his day. Big Bill Gates is a huge philanthropist,
Yeah,
and
that's like a thing that people forget too. Is like a his full time job at this point is to be a
yeah,
philanthropist.
that's what he does.
Is literally to and when people are like, well, why doesn't he just give it to the? It's like he specifically takes time to find the right organizations to make sure the money goes to the right people and the
He's
right places.
he's not even the COO of Microsoft anymore. He's a CEO, but he's not the COO. He
Yeah,
gave that job
he
a long
his
time ago.
yeah yeah his full time job is working as a philanthropist and doing. Well, I guess everyone thinks that. He's out to plant everyone with microchips and
Right. Yeah, yeah.
get
Oh
that
my
done.
God. But and then the other thing, um, so the founder of Turner Network, TNT Television, TBS, CNN, Ted Turner, okay? And I still
Yeah.
remember this when I taught current events. And we got Newsweek, we did current events and we read through Newsweek each week and everything. And I still remember this cover back in 97, 98. It said, and the headline was Ted Turner's putting billionaires on notice. When he gave, and again, this was 97, of course, but when he gave $1 billion away, and at that time he was only worth, and again, 97, but he was worth like $7 or $8 billion. And he gave 1/8 of his worth away. I mean, the rest of the world was like, what are you, crazy? You
Mhm.
know? But people think of them, like you said, they're not. We have to look at the whole picture. And Sean and I, and I'm not going to mention him by name, but Sean and I have this one really super liberal friend who's way off the plantation. Love him to death. But when he talks about, there's no logic. When you talk to some people, they want to point at you until they're blue in the face, say you're an idiot for buying into the system and capitalism is evil and all of the. Are there evils in capitalism? Of course there is. Are there people who are trying to screw the system? Of course there is. But at the end of the day, my dad had a saying: "You do not bite the hand that feeds you."
Mhm.
And unfortunately, you know, in this idea of socialism and taxing the rich, and you know, we don't know. In my opinion, we don't know what true poverty looks like. We have
No.
no we. So people who are, what is it? The poverty line is what at right, 28,000 a year for a family of four, I believe. Right now, 28,000, 30,000 somewhere in the neighborhood for a family of four. I believe it's somewhere in that
Yeah.
neighborhood. But uh, our poverty level is we're wealthier than, what is it, like 78% of the rest of the world
Hmm.
at poverty level. And when you go to places, and God's blessed me enough that I've got to go to China. I've been to Costa Rica. I've been to Jamaica. I've been to Mexico. And when you get out away from the touristy areas and you go, I went on a mission trip 3 times to Costa Rica. And when you go and you see women who are sweeping their dirt floor and it shines because they sweep it so much, and they take pride in that. And here's the thing, they are some of the most giving, friendliest people in the world because they don't care. They're glad to have a roof over their heads. They're not, you know, and they help each other out. Oh,
Hmm.
Kyle McGuire chimes in. And he says, "Family of four poverty line is $26,000." Thank you, KFK. Um, so I our idea of poor, and I just got done. We're actually working on my modern world class. Just got done talking about the French Revolution, and when you look at that time, that's poverty. That's when you had what was called the three estates: first estate, second estate, third estate, and 30 or I always mess this stat up. So 75% of the population lived on 2% of France's income.
Mm.
Okay, so the other 25% had the 98% of the wealth.
Yeah.
The and so the and the people who were being taxed were the poor. Was the third
Hmm.
estate. The first estate, which was the clergy, the second estate, which was the nobles, did not pay taxes. That's a situation where you have the right to scream to the top of your lungs, and they did, and they chopped people's heads off for it. That's where you get, and I think we lose perspective on how things really work. If you want to see, like Colby mentioned, his dad who grew up with no water or electricity. Same thing with my dad who grew up in the Depression with that too. You want to see, we've lost perspective. And like you said, slavery, wasn't that long. I mean, we still have people around who were raised during the Depression who saw what true poverty looks like. You know, today we consider, oh man, we're suffering if we don't have high speed internet, or if we don't have at least two flat screens in our house, or if I don't have, wall to wall stereo system. I mean, I think we really lose perspective on what it means to have and be in need.
Yeah,
So,
well, Tony and I were literally talking about yesterday about like how, like, when my family, when we were gifted a flat screen from the church, when flat screens first became a thing, and how like crazy it was. And it's now you go to any home in America and each room has a flat screen.
mm-hmm.
They're just,
Right.
I think there's where the divide comes from is because of, and again, I hate it, social media plays a big role in it because of things like clout and all that shit. But we see what other people have, and not just in like the newspaper or on the news anymore. It is constantly in our faces of, look at what I have, look at the people that like me because of the things that I have. And when
Right.
you're at home, and let's say if you're a teenager or you're a young person and you see that on your phone 24/7, and you look at the environment around you, maybe your life sucks, maybe your parents are split, maybe you have an abusive household, maybe you just have a normal life. It could even just be you live a middle class life, but you see this stuff and it's constantly thrown in your face of like, okay, well, this is what measures success, this is how
Right.
success is reached. So how then you go, okay, well, how do I obtain success? Well, then people seem to forget. And again, this is not, and I refuse to believe that this is just a younger generation thing. I actually hate
Mm-mm.
the amount of times I hear this, but
It's not a millennial thing, no.
it's not a millennial thing. But people don't like to put in hard work. That is a fact. That is just it doesn't matter what it is in all aspects of life. No shit, nobody wants to go into work for 40 hours a week. It's not a no brainer. But if you do, if you do put in the work, that's how you get paid. And if you, the big argument I always had is, if you want success, you can't work a 40-hour week. You have to work an 80-hour week. What I mean by that is, if you want to live and be successful off your dreams, whether it's a career that you want to do, whether you want to educate yourself, whether you want to be successful in whatever it is you want to be. But let's say today you can't do it because you can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have to work a 40-hour job. Okay, then work that 40-hour job. But when you clock out, the remaining hours of the day before you go to sleep has to go towards that dream. You have to put the same amount of time and effort into what you want to do, whether it's education, whether it's exercising, whether it's marketing, whether it's social media, whatever it is. But
Right.
here's the thing, this is where it gets difficult. Some people have kids, some people have families. I understand 120%. There never seems to be enough time in the day,
Because
but
life happens, right?
life happens. And unfortunately, like, I wish we made a bigger deal of computer networking and coding and made those
Oh
people
man.
influencers.
Yes.
But instead, our influencers, they are YouTubers, they are XYZ. And
And they're finding
unfortunately,
the quick way to make a buck, and that's also something that pisses people off because, well, if they can make a quick buck, then I can make a quick buck.
yeah. And so, but again, in some of that, like, it takes a lot of work. Like, for example, there's two guys that I watch from time to time if I need background noise, like if I'm doing dishes, there's two guys that I watch on YouTube, and they literally stream video games. Like, they play video games, and they talk, but they're very entertaining. I started watching both of them. Well, at this point, they started their YouTube channels just under 2 years ago now. I started watching them both when one of them had 200 subscribers and the other one had 75 subscribers. The very beginning. Now they both have over 200,000 subscribers and they
Wow.
make money weekly.
Wow.
But when I say they put in the work, these are two guys that worked full-time jobs And then when they weren't working, they were making YouTube content.
Right.
And, people act like, well, it's so easy. Oh, why can't I do? No one watches my stuff. Like, you don't understand. They work 2 full-time jobs,
Right.
YouTube and what they were doing. So there's opportunity cost. That's just
Yes.
how the world works.
And
opportunity cost.
And this is something I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something that is not talked about. And we're actually seeing this in our curriculum as a social studies teacher. We're at the opportunity cost itself. When you look at your dreams or your opportunity, everything, there's an opportunity cost. If there's a business venture, when you started your coffee company, there's going to be cost, right? You had the startup cost. You had all of this stuff. When we look into doing, when I started doing the DJ business, there's, if we start going into all the thousands of dollars that I've poured into lights, to pour into speakers, my partner who was with me, Glenn Lister, who, he, $4,000 into a really nice digital set. There's going to be cost. And I wanted to point something else out to what you said earlier. If you don't like your job, then you're just living. You're just being. I made this comment today to my kids, and I wasn't even thinking about tonight or anything like this. I've done what I have done for 25 years. I do not do it for the money. If I did, I would have been out a long time ago. I would have took job opportunities from Troy, from Hannibal, from Bowling. I took them. I had job opportunities offered to me. When my teacher, who I did my student teaching under, when she retired, she mentioned me by name to the board at Hannibal, and that would have been a $15,000 a year pay raise to start with. Okay. And I turned it down. Why? Because I love the community that I am. I'm loving what I do. The kids who I work with on a daily basis. If you don't look forward to going into your job, if you look at your job, then you need to be in. If you're looking at it for the money, I get satisfaction. I find success. My success for me isn't determined by the car I drive, the house I live in. First of all, I don't identify, and I get a little religious on people here, but I first identify as a Christian. Success in my life doesn't mean a whole lot, because I don't base myself on things of this world. I now, do I like stuff? I'm an electronics nerd. I love gaming stuff. I love Apple stuff. I love, but I don't base my success on that. I don't look at my success based upon the amount of, if you base success on the stuff that you have, the flat screens, the big screens, the big house, the small, I know people who live in a 1,200 square foot house, 1,000 square foot house, 900 square foot house, and they are as happy as they can be. I was watching some Snapchat content tonight before we came on of this NFL player, plays for the Vikings. He makes $9.7 million a year, which is, mid-tier, probably even a lower tier NFL player. But this guy is building his house, and he actually, so while he ran into some, issues with contractors, so he bought this camper. And this guy talks more about how awesome his camper is. And we're not talking like a big RV. We're talking like a little pop-out, little $30,000 camper. And this guy loves the simplicity of the life that he has. He comes to his camper. He called it his off-season crib.
Yeah. Well, I partially blame him for it, but Lenny Kravitz lives in an Airstream in Jamaica. Has an air, and I blame him for it because I love Airstreams. They're so beautiful, and but because these fucking celebrities have made it the cool thing that they were already expensive. Now it's don't even go to the website. Don't even look at them now.
Airstream,
because
awesome.
it's they're so cool, but it's literally like the life of luxury on road. I'm like, fuck you. You still hit a speed bump and you're losing your shit. Like, come on.
Yeah. Oh man.
Lenny. Yeah, some of that stuff, but no, like that's a real thing. Like, and there's other individuals like look at guy. There are individuals that live off endorsement deals and don't live like crazy lavish. Like Rob Gronkowski has not spent a dime of his NFL
Mm-mm.
salary. It's all endorsements and lives a
He's a party boy,
um
but he's still. I
big
mean,
party boy, but very conservative as far as
yes,
like the stuff
yes.
that he owns and stuff that he does. Like it's again,
He doesn't have a
people
big.
view
Yeah.
success sometimes, unfortunately, and here's the thing, and I'm going to kind of backtrack to what we're talking about, but when you had mentioned how there's good in capitalism, there's evil in capitalism. It's the same thing with socialism.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to forget the people that abuse a capitalistic society are also going to abuse a socialistic society. That's just how it works. And when you talked about biting the hand that feeds you, I had an argument with individuals because they literally tried claiming to me that if you taxed a billionaire at 60-70%, which you should, they wouldn't leave. Like they wouldn't pack up and leave. And I said, are you out of your mind? Look at how many even smaller businesses have offshore jobs to other nations, to
Mm-hmm.
other countries
Mm-hmm.
to save money.
Yep.
So if you were going to tax the income of an individual in the United States, I assure you, if you tax their business like that, they would take their company elsewhere
Right.
and then it'd be Americans paying the import tax on the goods that are coming in because people are still going to need those goods. People are still going to want those goods.
I,
It's
don't you just
it
laugh though? Don't you laugh at the people though? Like, and I tote Apple and everything like that, but Phil Knight and Nike, American company, bull crap. Where are those shoes? You know where those shoes are. You know where those shoes are assembled. Out there, it says right on the top of the tag, "Made in Vietnam."
Mhm.
Where they're getting what 25 cents a day, probably 25 30 cents a day. Communist country.
it's it's that's and that's again one of the issues that I've kind of always had when major corporations talk about like Nike, for example. You know me, like human rights are always a big thing and especially like civil rights and stuff like that, and I like that. When people bitched about Nike doing like having Black Lives Matter on their stuff, I don't care. Like if that's the message they want to push, that's a good message that
Yep.
they should push.
Yep.
The issue is it's like, okay, you're talking about Black Lives Matter here in America. What about
Asian lives matter in
the
Southeast Asia.
Asian lives in Southeast Asia and your other in your other factories that are in Africa and across the planet, across the globe where you have factories? What about those individuals where you're literally using
Slave
child slave
slave
labor?
labor. Right.
It's and I God, there was it was a comedy podcast, but I was listening to a podcast that was talking about our phones and how the processors, the chips that are in our processors are they literally the tech that gets mined out of actual slave camps. But here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. This is not like it's just one company. This is
Oh
just
no, it's spread out throughout.
that is it is
It's not.
throughout all of them. And that's another thing is we're real quick to blame so and so for it, but every business is a blood diamond business at the end of the
Yep.
day. If it makes money, it's glitters of gold. And
We
you
don't,
know
but we don't want to look at the ugly side of it though. But then again, so let's bring this full circle again. Okay, so now we come back to saying, okay, this is, and we're not going to be able to get to the issue. We'll save that for next week. But
mhm.
this issue is one. I guess we can call this a series of things about what divides us. Wealth being one of them, and but I want this stuff, and but I care about like you said, I care about these people getting the right what's right and what's wrong. But I want this stuff. I mentioned Apple. They have the balls to put on their products made in China,
Designed in California
designed in
or whatever.
California, made
Yeah.
in China. I'm like, that takes a huge set of testicles to say that. You have the balls and the fortitude to say, well, it's designed in America. Okay,
Hmm.
but I've, man, and I know I harp a lot about China, and I've only was there for 4 weeks. But man, my eyes were really open to. You want to see how a socialistic society, how people are blinded and they get lulled to sleep that this is okay. Go over there and just see where the money's at, because I can guarantee you, it's not in the hands of the people. It's not.
Hmm.
And these
Go
people
to
go to Vietnam, Cuba.
Venezuela.
Oh my
And
God,
and what people seem to
where
forget,
Travis's families
yeah,
are. Yeah,
literally go to Venezuela and act and try to tell me that a system that crumbled like that is going to work for a nation with 378 million people.
yeah, and see, and this is where I get a lot of people who do the eye roll with me. Okay, I grew up. I grew up in I grew up in the end of the Cold War, and communism was the enemy. And we saw communism as the enemy, and we saw it for the evil that what it was, and we saw how it didn't work, and we saw things that weren't working right. And now, I hate to say that I'm the old guy syndrome, but now I'm old enough now to where I see what used to be evil and what used to be bad now is, well, it didn't look so bad after all. But again, our perspective is so limited because we're in this, and America's not a little box, but yet it is a little box.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't even make up, we're a small percentage of the world's population. 8 billion people in the world, and we have 370 some odd million people. You know, whereas where India has, was they up to 1.7 and China's at 1.9 billion, you go to those countries and you see how they live and how they're paid and how they, you know, I don't know. I really I really want people. So, and this is what also I'll mention this. This is kind of what inspired this. So my pastor was talking. We kind of were talking this whole series. He's doing a series that's just called "All You Need Is Love," and he references back to the Beatles song "All You Need Is Love." But this week he played a clip from The Help. If you haven't seen The Help, I absolutely loved it because you'll never eat pie the same way again. But and you have to watch it to get what that reference is. But one of the lines in the movie is to show people that you really love them and care about them. You got to speak the truth. Now, I understand that that truth is a relative to whoever situation it is, but part of our 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 division is the lack of love, the lack that we can't sit down and speak the truth to each other, what we see as truth, because truth is relative. We can't speak the truth to each other, and so we're divided on issues because we don't want to listen. Hence the reason for this podcast. Part of it is just to say, could you take a moment and just consider? Could you take a moment and just consider that maybe there's something else? And I'm open to. My way is not the right way. Now, there's some things that I'm absolute on. I will not waver on my Christian faith. I will not waver on my Christian faith. I will not waver on, you know, being helping those in need, I will not waver on those things. But there are some things that I will sit and listen to and I will discuss. That's why I like to sit and discuss politics, because there are no absolutes in there are no absolutes in politics. There are
Mm-hmm.
none. There are no, and if you want to, well, there's absolutes in constitutional. No, there isn't. There are no absolutes. And so I think part of our, you know, and there's no there's absolutes in Christianity, but there are no absolutes in religion. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you grew up Presbyterian, I grew up Baptist. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's differences in the way that our doctrines believe, but at the core of our beliefs, you and I believe the same thing. Okay, but politics. You got me. If you would have got me in a room 20 years ago, I look back at myself 20 years ago, and Colby can. I was the conservative of conservative of conservatives. But as I've grown older, I've kind of like, okay, I just feel like I'm tired of being the guy who was duped in the room because I was so absolute that this was the way to be and this has got to be the
Mm-hmm.
only way because that's the way
Right.
you were raised. But once you get outside and you start stretching your own wings and you start flying on your own, you're going to start seeing that, man, maybe I should open my mind just a little bit, just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
so I can have a level of understanding to where I can see where the other guy is coming from. Because within the last 10 years, and then I know I'm ranting, but this is the last thing I want to say, and then we can move on. I think within the last 10 years, and Sean, you've been out of school long enough that you can say this probably too. In the last 10 years, I have seen our country divide more in the last 10 years than I have in my entire, I've been teaching over half my life now, and it's hard to believe that. But in my lifetime, I've seen us just go from this a 9/11 world where we were all together and united in one purpose to a 2021 world where people are at each other's throats over the issue of, like what we're talking about tonight was money. We're going to kind of delve next week and I'll give you a little teaser. We're going to delve a little bit next week into race. And, we're letting these things just and I go back to what I said earlier. I pray that there is not some devious force at play here that wants us to be divided, that wants us to be, and when they see just one more thing that they can use to fuel the fire, I mean, I don't know who I could point a finger at or who it is, or if it was 2016, the Democrats would say, well, it's Russia. But I mean, that they've got trolls out there on the internet, that they've got trolls out there in social media who are using these things to just stoke the fire just a little bit more. I hope that there is nothing like that that's going on. But anymore, part of me, there's just so many parts of the world that wants to see the downfall of America, and they love to see this division.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're not wrong. And at first I thought you were going to say a devious lick out there. That was,
Devious. Yeah.
good Lord. Well,
Anyway, hey, by the way, happy 30th episode.
hey, yeah, we are at episode 30. Just think, we are
Almost,
22 episodes away from a full year. We are over the halfway
and then we
mark.
can start the Voice of Reason podcast 2022.
Hell yeah. Oh, man. Well, no, I really enjoyed, and I'm not sure if there's anything too specific you want to dive into more, but did really enjoy this talk, just because, man, you're not wrong, and we go over it, and when we talk week by week, we express our frustrations and the shit that we see, and when we share it back and forth to one another, and Travis too, and Matt. Whoever we have on is typically, it's like, did you see this shit? And did you see this? And you've got to be kidding me. And
Right, right.
I mean, and it's just,
And
it's a constant. And
that is the beauty of this. That I look forward to this every week. This is
same, absolutely
I
same.
mean, when I was a little kid, and I want to get one of my buddies on from my childhood.
Yeah.
We used to have a. It's so funny. We used to do this mock radio station. We called it WKGB, where the communists hide. It was we were all anti, but
Oh yeah.
he and I would make these little audio tapes, and we would make copies of them, and we'd send them to our friends, and
Hmm.
and I this was something you want to talk about a dream. I've always enjoyed being able to have a platform where we can do this kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And when you approached me about this, that's why I was like, you talk about chasing. I knew I probably can't make a living at this, but at the same time, I enjoy doing this. Even I mean, we have,
Yeah.
we do have a continual audience, and again, thank you guys for. I mean, we're getting close to the 500 mark now on our likes on our and shares on our Facebook page, and man, that's awesome to see. And we know that at some point in time, there's not all 500 get us every week, but man, it's so awesome that we can
Mhm.
share frustration, life, and just things in general with you guys, and we just appreciate that so much.
And to caveat on that, like it really does make my day when we get messages or when we get comments that are like, "Hey, like there's individuals that are some of the last people that I expected to
Mm-hmm.
listen to this podcast that have messaged me like, "Hey, I love catching it. I'm caught up on all the episodes
Yeah,
right now.
what are
I
you gonna?
listen to
Yeah,
you guys in the car, and it's just like, holy cow!" So the big thing, I know I stress it a whole bunch, but seriously, please, if you don't already, which I'm sure if you're listening now, you at least like us, but on Facebook and everything. But if you could just share and talk, tell someone that you didn't tell last week about us. Say, hey,
right.
these are two goofballs that they always got something good going on, and please just tell someone. And as the page grows and as the viewership and listeners go, there's more that we can do, there's more that we can put into this to really make it something special, and we couldn't do it without you guys from seriously the bottom of our hearts. It's been fun, and
Mm-hmm.
30 episodes in, I can't wait to kind of see where it goes
Yep.
from here.
Yep.
So
Yep.
again, make sure you guys like us on YouTube. Check us out right here on Facebook. Please, if you haven't commented before, please comment. If you're listening to us, I know we have a lot of folks that check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you guys so much for listening to us
Mm-hmm.
there. Google Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Thank you so much for giving us a listen. Again, I'll repeat it. It's a broken record. Give us a like, share, all that good stuff. Let the
Indeed.
people know. And I can't wait to be back with you guys next week.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.
Take care.